Okay guys, we are picking up with the other portion of continuing education for the overhead pressing. We just talked about the shoulder press and went over the setup cues and the finish cues. Obviously the setup is going to be very similar with the exception of a little bit of a change in elbow angle for the push press, and then the finish cues are the same in terms of the position that we want to get people in their finish position after execution. For the push press, we are including two additional movements or cues, which is the dip and the drive. The dip and the drive. So setup is the same, and then the finish is the same, dip and drive. What are some of the cues that we want to see and the universal principles that we want to see in the dip and the drive? So dip, we want to maintain a vertical torso in the dip. Vertical torso in the dip. So the moment that you see somebody hinging, meaning the hips are going back, the shoulders are coming forward of the hips, what that is going to do is going to send the trajectory of the bar away from you instead of up into the air. So vertical torso dip. Where do you want your weight in the dip? This is key, mid-foot. We don't want it on the toes because that's going to lead to a forward lean. We don't want it in the heels because that's going to lead to us pushing back. We want to be mid-foot, vertical torso dip, so that also allows us to easily get into the last cue, which is that triple extension. The weight in the rear or the heel is going to hinder us from getting maximum drive with triple extension. Where should our knees be? We want, and this kind of leads to also like how deep is too deep on a dip, right? Maybe you've coached somebody who's doing like a thruster instead of a push press. So once you're in the power stance, we're vertically dipping, okay? Those knees are coming forward and pushing maybe out a little bit toward the knee. How deep is too deep? The moment that your knees come beyond your toes, that would be too deep, but really anywhere between here and here is safe. Every warrior is going to dip a little bit differently. Some will go a little deeper, some will be a little bit more shallow. As long as the knees stay at or behind the toes, then it should work and it's good for a dip. The other thing that we sometimes see is a warrior who kind of dips and they're not really utilizing that dip. So they're going down and then they're standing and they're pressing. In a dip, there shouldn't be this kind of slow descent and then slow change in direction. We want an abrupt stop. So we come down aggressively, abrupt stop and change in direction. Abrupt stop and then change in direction. We want to utilize that loading and that aggressive that aggressive stop to change the direction and the trajectory of that bar. So those are the cues for the dip that you can be thinking about when coaching warriors in a push press. For the drive, what are some of the cues that we want? We want good bar body contact. Good bar body contact, so we have that grip. Now again, our elbows are changing angles. If this is my strict press, this is my push press. I still want grip on the bar as much as possible, full fingers around the bar, but we are pressing forward a little bit to create more of a deltoid shelf so that when I'm dipping, that bar is making contact with my body and my body is creating force through the ground up into the bar. So if I'm hovering out here and I go to dip, my wrist, my elbows, other joints are taking away from the drive that I'm creating with my dip, okay? So good bar body contact. We want to make sure that we're driving before we act with our arms. So if you've ever seen somebody who comes down and then they start to press before they have finished their drive, they're not getting all of the power that they could be getting out of the drive. So making sure that they dip, drive, and then act with the arms. So only act with the arms after the drive. And then the final thing is triple extension. Do you want to come up on your toes in the finish of a push press? You do. We want, or at least you will, okay? So we want to be able to dip, we're going to extend knees, extend hips, and then you will end up even extending toes and coming up on your toes a little bit if you're aggressively trying to get some heavy weight over your head. So those are the cues for push press. Would love to hear some of your guys' thoughts as well, if there's anything that you guys are seeing or any questions that you have. But I know all of those cues were helpful to us as we step into this overhead cycle. Remember that all of the finished positions still stand. The one other thing I'll put into this video is spotting. Should you spot a push press or a strict press on a warrior? Should you, or how do you spot one? And the answer is generally we don't spot. Why don't we spot a push press or a strict press? Just like a front squat, because the weight is on the front of the body, it's a self-limiting movement. So when that bar is too heavy and we're right here, typically we can either bring it back down or we can drop it off of our bodies and step out from underneath it. And so just like we don't really spot a front squat, you just get down, and if you end up failing, you drop that weight off of you. We also don't spot a push press or a strict press. We allow that warrior to be self-limited in what they're doing. All right, guys, hope that's helpful. Enjoy this 6-week overhead cycle. Looking forward to seeing some of the progress that you and your warriors make during this time. Love you guys.